Hello, hello, everyone. We are on the fringe. We're slicing and dicing and chopping it up. So, in the last 2 weeks, one of the strongest relationships that the United States has with one of its allies has kind of come in some ways into question, but it looks like that the Korean people gave it away. The Korean people are very, very strong and they're very, very willing to defend one of the values that they have fought very, very hard for over the last 60 to 70 years, democracy. So if you listen to our first episode about 2 weeks ago, the president of South Korea, Yoon Suk Yeol, declared martial law for about 6 or 7 hours. And he basically brought in the Korean military into parliament, and he wanted Korean parliament to be flushed from all of the North Korean dark forces that were in there. Well, that did
Whoa.
not work. Yeah, I know. Scary, right? Cue the spooky music. Well,
Ooh.
ooh,
Ooh. Yeah.
ooh, the
And how did
ghosts.
that go for him, Dave?
Well, it did not go very well. So a couple of days later, he apologized, and South Korea's defense minister largely took the fall. He has already been arrested. Their former defense minister, I should say, Kim Yong-hyun, is currently locked up. He tried to hang himself with his underwear a couple of days ago. That did not go very well. A little bit too much
Really?
stretch in the waistband, I would imagine, and I would not imagine that is a good thing to do. Please, please do not do anything like that. And the current
Don't buy Fruit of the Loom.
no fruit of the loom and no extra stretchy waistband. And if you need the small pouch as well, like I do, it's probably not going to give you much to work with. So I would not recommend doing either. The current president has about 180 days, I would say, maximum of
Hmm.
how long he's going to be president, because the Korean Supreme Court is basically going to decide what to do with him. He's currently been barred from leaving the country, and he's largely just the president in name. Where he's still the president, but he really does not have any power. All of the power has gone to the prime minister of South Korea. And it was a huge, huge deal. I'm currently in South Korea, and I did not go near any of the protests. If you're a foreigner in South Korea, just a piece of advice, and Koreans are protesting, do not go near them. As a foreigner, you can get in very, very big trouble. You can get charged, and it will definitely ruin your trip and ruin your day. So I did not go near anything like that, but there were lots of people out in Seoul this weekend protesting. And last night, people were very, very, I would say, happy that the Korean parliament had over 200 people basically declare that Yoon is unfit to be president. I'm trying to say this as neutrally as I can because I do not want to show any sort of bias toward the recent events in South Korea.
That said, it's kind of hard to do because the situation is basically changing on an hourly basis. And since we recorded our first episode, it's really continued to change very quickly. Uh, Mr. Yoon has now been impeached, and it's now going to the Constitutional Court to decide whether or not that impeachment will stand. The Constitutional Court has ruled on impeachment before. It usually takes a couple of weeks. I think at the quickest, it's going to take a couple of weeks. Though for
Mm-hmm.
obvious reasons, there are people urging the court to move even more quickly. Um,
Yeah, well, that's primarily with the Democratic Party in
yes.
South Korea is largely pushing this. They want this to end as quickly as possible, and they want the country to get over Yoon's presidency. And for better or
And
for
I
worse,
think,
he was president 13. 13 is in the West an unlucky number.
boys,
So,
and I think, there is that reason. Let's move past this as a country. There's also a slightly more pragmatic reason, which you've been hinting at as well, Dave, which is they want to have elections while the other party looks really bad.
hmm
Um,
that they do.
That they do. So
And they
there
just
are,
had
I think,
elections in April, but they want to have them again.
I mean, some countries seem to have elections every couple of months. So, they are very keen on wrapping this up as quickly as possible, even to the extent of basically offering an olive branch to the president's former party and, sort of offering, we'll work with you. We'll move things along. The acting prime minister, I want to make sure I'm saying the guy's name right, Han Duck-soo.
Yep, Han Duck-soo.
Han Duck-soo, who I think of sort of everyone involved in this fiasco has kind of come out pretty well. Um, he seems to be very interested, again, for I think fairly pragmatic reasons. He seems to be interested in making everything move as quickly and as seamlessly as possible because, again, he's trying to make the party look good and recover from the massive damage done to its reputation uh, under now former president or soon to be former president Yoon.
I think he's still technically president, but the motion to impeach him is moving forward, and at most he has 180 days. And
What
that's
he's been
as long
stripped,
the maximum.
yeah.
It would be 180 days. The maximum it would be is 180 days, but very likely, like you're saying, this is probably going to be over. I would think before the end of January. They're going to roll through this as quickly as possible. And if you've been to Korea, you know they have a culture here, bali bali, which is do stuff as quickly as possible and get it done. And they're just going to roll through this. So it wouldn't shock me by the end of the year if Yunus is not out.
Well, and it's kind of a meaningless position at this point because he's been stripped of all executive power and he can't
Hmm.
actually do anything constitutionally. So, things are moving apace. People are very, and there's some very serious economic concerns because this has really unsettled the markets.
Yes,
And
it has. The won has dropped
yeah,
significantly in the last week, and I've lived in Korea for geez, probably 7 years, and I've been visiting Korea for probably the last 12, and this is the lowest the won has been ever. And prices have gone up significantly in the last couple of years, but the exchange rate now for the won to dollar is as low as it's going to be. You're going to get the most won for your dollar. I think this is the most since the economic crisis in 1997, 1998.
and I believe this is something to do with the Bank of Korea's method of trying to stabilize the economy, which,
Hmm.
as far as I'm aware, has been to print as many won as possible.
Yep. Yep, they're
Yeah.
trying to print and they're trying to export and basically try to get as much money out there as possible, get as many Korean bonds and get as much Korean money out there on the market as possible. And the
They're
Korean
trying to
economy
profit out
is
of
a
liquidity. Yeah.
yeah, the Korean economy right now is a mess. Not going to go into it, but it's definitely not healthy. And Yoon declaring martial law a couple of weeks ago did nothing to help that. It basically pushed away a lot of consumer confidence in the country, and the Bank of Korea basically came together at the last minute and said, okay, we're going to come up with some measures to actually try to stabilize the economy. And they were able to do
Mhm.
that. The won has taken a hit, but overall, the country still is stable, I would say. And people here are just going about their daily lives. I mean, it's not like an event where you have the whole entire country potentially fall apart. It looked like maybe for a few hours, yes, it was going to happen during the evening, I guess, early morning of what was that? 2 weeks ago. It was December 1st. I can't remember the exact date. 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, but it looked potentially very, very bleak for some people because really nobody had any idea what was going on in South Korea, not even the military. And basically, the whole entire country was able to avert a major disaster.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
But I mean, I guess the question is, and Korean diplomats have been working overtime to really reassure all their partners, particularly the U.S., but not only the U.S.,
Yep.
that this is not indicative of a larger issue in Korean politics. And as we were discussing last time, there are significant issues in Korean politics at the moment. And the kind of structural issues that led to this situation, drastic though it appears to have been on Yoon's part, this did not come out of the blue. And the
Hmm.
conditions that contributed to it, uh, I don't see them going away.
Well, I don't either, and I think this just points you have a huge divide within Korean society as a whole, politically and economically. And I mean, you look at Korea, and Korea is a very developed country in a lot of respects, but the country's developed so quickly in the last 60, 70 years. It's gone from being the second poorest up to one of the top 15 richest countries in the world.
Mm.
And when the country grows that quick and it changes that quick, it's not going to grow completely evenly across every single spectrum. And it's going to take time for the whole entire country to grow at that rate. Yes, the economy has largely grown very quickly, and yes, it's developed very quickly, but it's still going to have growing pains in other areas of Korean society and areas of Korean culture and other problems that are going on. And they've done a very good job. I have to give the Koreans a huge pat on the back for standing up for democracy and as well as trying to like stamp out a lot of the problems that they have. But they still have a lot of things going on within the country that are going to take time to need to be fixed.
Well, hopefully they get that time and hopefully the process moves along smoothly. Thanks for reporting live from Seoul. And
Yeah.
we'll see you all again sometime soon, sometime down the road. From us here on The Fringe, have a good one.